Good morning, dear students. Mr. Mahmoud Azab with you. Today, lesson 15.1, numerical patterns. Read this example, page 813. This example says, Emma has $100 in her saving account. George has $50 in his saving account. They each put $10 in their accounts at the end of each week. Complete the table to see how much each of them has saved after 5 weeks. What pattern do you notice? Of course, according to this example, we must add 10 to each one. So 100 plus 10, it will be 110. This is for Emma. 110 plus 10 more, 120. 10 more, 130. 10 more, 140. 10 more, it will be $150. So after 5 weeks, Emma has $150 in her saving account. Now go to George. The same, 50 and 10 more, it will be $60. And 10 more, $70. And 10 more, $80. 10 more, $90. And 10 more, it will be $100. So after 5 weeks, George has $100 in his saving account. The second part of the question, what patterns do you notice? Think. We have a lot of answers. For example, we can say add 10. This is the pattern for each table. For Emma and George, just add 10. Or compare the amount of money in Emma and George's saving account. The first row, for example, $100 and $50. Of course, Emma always has 50 more than George. The second row, 120 and 70. Compare 120 and 70. Of course, 120 is $50 more than 70, and so on. For example, the last row, $150 for Emma and $100 for George. Of course, 150 is $50 more than George. So, simple answer, we can say that Emma always has $50 more than George. Are you happy with this? Yes? Okay, go to the next. Page 814. Read this example. This example says, Lindsay has a sage plant that is 3.5 inches tall. She also has a rosemary plant that is 5.2 inches tall. Both plants grow 1.5 inches taller each week. How tall will the plants be after 5 weeks? What is the relation between the heights of the plants? Of course, we must complete these tables. 3.5 tall for the sage. After that, add 1.5. So add 3.5 plus 1.5, it will be 5. So 1.5 more, or 5 plus 1.5, add them, it will be 6.5. 6.5 plus 1.5 more, it will be 8. 8 plus 1.5, it will be 9.5. And the last row, 9.5 plus 1.5, it will be 11 inches. This is for the sage plant. For the rosemary, we'll begin with 5.2. 5.2 plus 1.5, add them, it will be 6.7. 1.5 more, 6.7 will be 8.2. 8.2 and 1.5 more, it will be 9.7. 9.7 and 1.5 more, it will be 11.2. 11.2 and 1.5 more, it will be 12.7 inches. This is for the rosemary. Of course, according to the question, we must add 1.5 inches each week. Now, the second part of the question. What the relation between the heights of the plants? Look at the rosemary and look at the sage plant. For example, the first row, 3.5 and 5.2. Of course, the rosemary is greater than the sage plant. So now we can subtract 5.2 minus 3.5 to find the difference. So it will be 1.57 inches. We can find out this answer by using the row, the first week, week 1. The height of the sage plant is 5 and the height of the rosemary plant is 6.7. What the difference between 6.7 and 5? Of course, 6.7 is 1.7 more than 5. So we can say that the relation between the rosemary, the heights of each plant is the rosemary plant is always 1.7 inches taller than the sage plant. Are you happy with this? Yes? We'll use these tables in the next page to solve questions from 1 to 4. Now, go to the next page, question 1. Page 815, question 1. The question says, Anthony says the pattern is that the sage plant is always 1.7 inches shorter than the rosemary plant. Do you agree? Explain. We'll use the previous example. Here you are the tables for the sage plant and the rosemary plant. As we said that the rosemary plant is 1.7 inches taller than the sage plant. Of course, Anthony is correct. Yes. Why? Simple answer. If the rosemary plant is always 1.7 inches, as we said, taller than the sage plant, of course the sage plant is always 1.7 inches shorter. Go to question 2. Question 2 depends on the previous example, so we'll use these tables. The question says, how does making tables help you to identify relationships between terms and patterns? As we did before in the previous example, we compare the first row, the numbers in the first row, 3.5 and 5.2, and we deduce that 5.2 is 1.7 greater than 3.5. To check, we used the second row and we compared 5 and 6.7. Then we were sure that 6.7 is 1.7 greater than 5. So, of course, using tables is easy because you can line up the terms and compare them easily. Question 3. Question 3 depends on the same question. Question 3 says, if the plants continue to grow 1.5 each week, how tall will each plant be after 10 weeks? How to think? Of course, the question says 1.5 inches for each week. So for the second week it will be repeated 2 times. For the third week 1.5 is repeated 3 times. So according to this question we must multiply or repeat 1.5 times 10. So after 10 weeks 1.5 is repeated or multiplied by 10. What's 1.5 times 10? Yes, it's 15 inches. So for the sage plant after 10 weeks it will be 15 inches taller. So for the sage plant we must add 3.5 plus 15, it will be 18.5 inches. Now go to the rosemary plant, the same, begin with 5.2 and add 15 inches, so it will be 20.2 inches. Are you happy with this? Yes? Then go to question 4. Use the previous example to solve the question 4. Question 4 says, if the plants continue to grow 1.5 inches each week, how tall will each plant be after 15 weeks? This is the same as question 3. So stop the video and do it yourself. After that, come back to check your answer. Have you finished? Yes? Okay. Of course, the first step, we must multiply 1.5 times 15 weeks. You can line up these numbers and multiply 1.5 times 15. Yes, it will be 22.5 inches. So after 15 weeks, we must add 22.5 inches. Now, for the sage plant, the initial value is 3.5, so 3.5 plus 22.5, it will be 26 inches. For the rosemary, the initial value is 5.2, so begin with 5.2 and add 22.5 more, so it will be 27.7 inches. Are you happy with this? Yes? Go to question 5 now. In 5 to 7, use the rule add $50 to help you. So the rule here, we must add 0.50 each time. Question 5 says, Tim and Jill each have a piggy bank. Tim starts with $1.25 in his bank and puts in $100 each week. Jill starts with $2.75 in her bank and also puts in 0.50 or $100 each week. Complete the table to show how much money each has saved after 5 weeks. Stop the video and try to add 0.50 each time and complete this table. Stop the video if you want and come back to check your answers. Yes, now check your answers. For Tim, we must add 1.25 plus 5/10 or 50/100. Of course, it's the same. So just add 5 to the 10th. So, and after the first week, it will be $1.75 and 0.50 more, it will be 2.25 plus 0.50, it will be 2.75, and $50 more, it will be 3.25. 3.25 add 0.50 or 50/10, it will be 3.75 or $3.75. Go to Jill now and do the same, only add 5/10 or 50/100. Of course, you know that it is the same. So after 1 week, it will be $3.25. Add now again 0.50 more, so it will be 3.75. Continue, it will be 4.25, and 50/100 more, it will be 4.75. 50 more, it will be $5.25. This is for the after the 5th week. Now, question 6. What relationship do you notice between the amount Tim has saved and the amount Jill has saved each week? Look at this data. Compare the numbers. For example, after 1 week, what the relation between 1.75 and 3.25? Or you can compare the initial value, 1.25 and 2.75. Of course, 2.75 is more than 1.25. So now, find the difference between the two initial value for Jim and Tim. So subtract 2.75 minus 1.25. It will be $1.50. So Jill always has $1.50 more saved than Tim. Are you happy with this? Yes? Go to question 7. Question 7. If Tim and Jill continue saving in this way, how much will each have saved after 10 weeks? Explain how you decide. Of course, after 10 weeks, we must repeat 0.50 or $100. It will be repeated 10 times. So the first step is multiplying 0.50 times 10 weeks. So the answer, yes, it will be $5. So after 10 weeks, Tim and Jim, both of them will be $5 more than the initial value. So now begin with Tim. The initial value, he began with 1.25, so we must add 1.25 plus $5 more. It will be $6.25. For Jill, the same. Jill began with 2.75, so 2.75 plus $5, it will be $7.25. Are you happy with this? Yes. Thank you and goodbye.